Hello everyone and welcome back to Best of the Month. I'm here with another month, another batch of creators, some that have been on previously and some new, to talk about what they've enjoyed the most in this last month. Some are brand new games, some are games that have been out months, maybe even years. Well, let's jump into the first creator to see what people have been enjoying.
Hi, it's Barb MeeplePhD, and my favorite play for May 2022 is Ark Nova. It's building up a zoo, which is one of my favorite themes in games. But the thing that this one does differently, at least with the theme, is that there is also a very strong emphasis on conservation efforts, and this reflects what real zoos are doing today. They're looking for ways to bolster wild animals as well as showcase animals in their zoos. I love that the theme, even though it is a zoo theme, it feels different. It's also a heavier game than most of my other zoo games, which could be a barrier to getting this to the table, and I have only played it at 2-player, and I played 1 solo game. So I haven't played it at higher player counts. With just 2 players, it is still a 2-hour game. But it doesn't feel like a 2-hour game. There's no point during the game where I'm just feeling like it's a slog or wondering what I'm going to do next. I'm constantly looking at my own zoo and looking at the available cards and trying to figure out what the best thing to do is. And I really enjoy the mechanisms of this game. It's a river of cards. These are cards that you're going to select actions from. And the position of the card tells you how strong the action is that you can take. So you can always take the number 1 slot action card, but it's not going to be very strong. So you might want to wait for it to slide down to the number 5 slot when it will be really powerful. But maybe you need to build 2 or 3 different enclosures, and they don't need to be huge ones. So you're kind of doing the build action, the 2 or 3 slot a few times. But then you want some of those cards to slide up in order to do the more powerful actions. And so there's a constant, decision making about what action should I do next? What's the most powerful thing for me to do now? Or what can I chain together so that in a couple of turns I have that really big turn? So for me, even though it's a longer game and I'm a little worried about playing with more than 2 players, I have just had a blast with the games that I have been playing, and I can't wait to try again and look at some of the different zoo maps that have different abilities and see how those change up the game for me. And I do want to introduce this to some new players. I have a couple of folks in mind who I think would really enjoy this. And if it's this enjoyable at 2 players in 2 hours, I'm guessing it will be just as enjoyable with more players, and even if it's a little bit longer. So for me, that's why Ark Nova was my favorite play this past month. What was yours? Or does this sound interesting to you? Maybe you want to go find a friend who has it or a board game cafe and give it a try. Otherwise, go check me out on the internet somewhere. I am at Meeple PhD on Instagram and Twitter. I have a blog at meeplephd.com, and I have my own YouTube channel where I connect astronomy and board games. We'll see you next month.
Hello and welcome. I'm Adam from Board at Home, and a pleasure to be here once again with my good friends at Don't Be Bored. This month, my game of the month is Meeples Fury by Rainer Knizia. This is a game where you will be drafting cards in order to score points on the board based on different areas. It's what people like to call a point salad game. You're just collecting as many points as possible and you're using the cards to do so. What I really like about this game is similar to Mandala Stones, that was my game of the month a few months back, and that is the fact that it is relatively straightforward in how the game plays. You will be drafting cards, and those cards will give you a scoring requirement that you will use to score your points. Like Mandala Stones, the crux of it is actually in the scoring itself. How are you going to score? How are you going to get the best score that you can with each possible move? In this, could your opponent set you up for a better score? So I'll show you the game boards here, and you can see there's quite a few areas surrounded by the score track. And each area will have its own scoring requirements, and there's just so much to it. And one of the things I really enjoy is in different areas, the communal areas, your opponents could do the work for you, and then you could come in and nab those top points from right underneath them. So it really makes you think about not only what you're picking for your cards, but also what your opponents are picking as well. And there's a lot of combos that you can do in this as well. So these symbols here that you see around dotted around the board are extra cards. So there's extra cards set off to the side of the game, and these are replenished at the end of each round. These are cards here that can be used should you meet the requirements to benefit from an extra card. And it's later in the game, it's easy, and I've seen it done quite a lot, especially by my wife, who absolutely destroyed me in our first game of this, where you can combo off getting these extra cards, maybe filling in a little space here to get one there, and that allows you to get the third symbol for this bit, and then that one allows you to get the fifth space on here, so you get another one, and then that one carries on and carries on. So it's really nice, really thinky, and it's absolutely beautiful to play. Once the board is finished, you've got all of these lovely coloured pieces all over it, and you've got the beautiful pawns and ships that the game uses to track your score and your progress. The cards are fairly straightforward as well, so they tell you exactly everything that you need. And a bit like the scoring themselves, there's a little bit of explanation the first time, just because everything scores differently. So that is Meeples Fury, my game of the month. I hope that you get a chance to play this if you haven't already. It is absolutely fantastic. If you're a fan of games like Azul or Mandala Stones, then this is one that I think that you will be in love with. That's all for me for my best of the month. Looking forward to seeing what everyone else does, and thanks again to Ollie and Don't Be Bored. See you next month, guys.
Hi, I'm Sonia Woodworth from Twice as Nice Dice, and here today I'm going to talk about the game that I've played the most, or that I've been crazy about the most, I guess, for May 20 of 22. So I'm going to see if you can guess. So this game is an Ameritrash game. It is a bunch of minis on a board. There are several quests in the book. There are several expansions to add. And it's from Simon Games. If you guessed Zombicide, then you guessed right. But if you guessed Zombicide Green Horde, then you get A+. Anyways, so I have been playing Zombicide Green Horde. This is my first installment of playing Zombicide. And we learned it, we played it, we love it. We have since played other Zombicides, but we're very excited to just come back to this one. We love the fact that there's zombie orcs, and we love the fact that they have different scenarios in which to find things to stop the spawning of these orcs and the necromancer that comes to get you. We love the fact that there is a horde that goes off to the side of the board that starts building and building and building. But what's even more fun is that there's a siege engine, a trebuchet, that once you get on it, you can annihilate the big zombies, the horde of zombies, anything really that's on the board. Watch out for your fellow players too. But we love the fact that it is just so fun, and we just get to annihilate everything, fulfill the quests, and just have more fun using more of the expansions, adding more siege engines, and more monsters like dragons and such. All right, that's all for May. See you later. Bye.
Well, my best of the month, well, that comes in these tiny wallets. These are from Button Shy Games, so they are the tiny little wallet games that they do, which basically means they are small sets of cards in a game. This is even Tussie Mussy, which is a design by Elizabeth Hargrave. You might know her from such games. You know, the small little indie game Wingspan. Most people will probably have heard of it. This is one of her other games. It's a really interesting game where you are effectively, if you're playing with other players, offering them a choice between a face-up flower card and a face-down flower card. You know what they are, but they are choosing from it. You're going to be creating bouquets and keepsakes from 4 cards in a round, so doing a few sort of passes back and forth a few offerings, and then you're going to score points. Now, I've been really enjoying this actually as a solo game. I haven't really played too many vast solo games, to be honest. But I wanted to give this one a go because it came with the Kickstarter. I've got sort of the expansions, the green and the orange flowers expansions, the ribbons, which I've not touched yet. And then there is the solo mode. Like I say, I am not a solo gamer, but I've enjoyed the puzzle here. Now, you would think it's a game all about offering cards which have powers. Surely against an AI, it's, if you're picking for it, you're going to easily win. I thought that until it took me about 6 attempts to actually win. And the 5th one I was very annoyed at because it was a draw. Now, the reason it gets good as a puzzle is that in round 1, you have 4 cards. The opponent, the AI that you've chosen, you don't necessarily know all of the cards, but you've chosen them to go over to the opponent. You're both scoring 4 cards. In the second round, they keep one of those and get another 4. So then they've got 5 cards scoring. And in the final round, they have 6 cards scoring. What that does is it just increases the AI's odds to score more and more points each round. There are cards here, for instance, that say score a point per other card in your hand, in your bouquet, or maybe for all of your keepsakes, or for all cards that are of a certain colour, or for different colours. Well, when you've got 4 points, the maximum of some of those is, say, 4 points. But if the AI has 6 cards, that's the potential, at least, to score a lot more points from you. Yes, it's almost at random. You're choosing what to give it, and there are plenty of times you can choose to give it a bad card. But you're always fighting against the odds. The odds that they have are increased. They have more chance of having purples or oranges or whatever in their hand. And it creates an interesting puzzle to play against. And it's a tiny little wallet. Both of these, that's all of the expansions, the solo and the base game. That just fits in my bag going to work, which means at lunch, if no one else is available, I can still play this. And that is not much room in my bag. It's so easy to just open them up and start playing. And that's why I've been playing and very much enjoying Tussie Mussy this month. Anyway, on with some more creators.
Hi, my name's Kat and I play Red. This month's game of the month for me is Ark Nova. I know, we're late to the party. In Ark Nova, your player board, you're going to have 5 actions available to you each turn. And the strength of the action is determined by its placement on the row here. So at the moment, my animals is at 1, cards at 2, build at 3, etc. When I take an action, let's take this sponsor's action for 5. I can play a sponsor's card with a value up to 5. So let's play this one for 4. So every time a predator is played in any zoo, I'm going to gain free money. Then I'm going to take that sponsor's card, move everything up and put it in the number 1 slot. Over the course of the game, you're going to get appeal points, mostly from playing animals into your zoo. And this here is the appeal track. You're then going to get conservation points, this green track here. To win the game, you need to cross the 2 over. So you can play animals into your zoo. So if I were to pay 18 money, I could put this monkey into my zoo and I'd flip the paddock over and there's my monkey. So the animals card would then move down and become a 1. You can build enclosures for your animals using the build card. So here I can build up to a 4 enclosure. Different animals require different size enclosures. So this grizzly bear here needs a 5, but he also needs quite a lot of other stuff before you can play him. This panda here will give you reputation points here, which will help you draw cards from the middle, conservation points and appeal points. When your 2 markers meet, play to the end of the round, use any endgame cards to see who the winner is. You'll start the game with 2 endgame points and you'll choose 1 to score. So this one will give me conservation points for having large animals. This one will give me points for having higher reputation in my zoo. There is a lot going on, but the entire game breaks down to the 5 cards in front of you, which are also your choices of action. So once you know what you're doing, turns should be really quick. When you support conservation projects, you're going to take cubes off your board, which will give you bonuses and income. So we'll start the game with some conservation cards out. So Australia icons, bird icons, Asia icons, but other projects will come up over the course of the game and you'll be able to play them from your hand. The other great thing about this game is these lovely trays that come with it, which means setup and breakdown is super easy. So that very quickly is Arknova from Capstone Games. It's available now if you can get it. It's obviously very hot right now. Check it out. Thanks for watching. See you next month. Bye.
Hello everyone, this is Jeremy from King's Entertainment Reviews, and I am here to talk about my board game of the month. The game that I'm going with is not a new game, but it is one that I've had some great experiences with in the last month, and that is 5 Minute Dungeon. This is a great game that is very fast-paced. It's easy to teach to absolutely anybody. You could literally teach this game in 5-10 minutes max to people who are brand new to board games, to kids, to your 80-year-old grandma who wants to just do something with the family. You can teach it to literally anybody. It's a relatively compact box. Everything fits in there really nicely, so you can take it pretty much wherever you want to take it. What are some of the things that I like about this game? Well, it's a game that's designed to only take 5 minutes, so that's one good thing. At least each round is supposed to take 5 minutes. It's a game that has a lot of different facets to it based on how you play it. So you have these different decks that are all going to be geared around the different characters here. So let's go through some of them. So we have like the ninja and the thief. You have the wizard and the sorceress. You have the barbarian and the gladiator, paladin and the Valkyrie, huntress and the ranger. So each one of those characters has their own deck. So this would be, say, the ranger or the huntress's deck. This one would be for the Valkyrie or the paladin. This one would be for the wizard or the sorceress. This one is for the thief or the ninja, and this one is for the gladiator and the barbarian. And what you're trying to do is you're trying to go up against the door deck. This door deck has a whole bunch of challenges and monsters that you're going to have to come up against. So some of them will be challenge cards like this. All players discard 3 cards. Some of them will be just obstacles where you have to match them up. And you're trying to take the cards out of your deck and make sure that you can match up the symbols. And when you get through the door deck, based on what level you're at, you're going to have to face the boss. And there's a whole bunch of bosses. And if you get all the way to the end, you have the dungeon master. The cool thing about this game is if you have a well-oiled machine, great players that are really paying attention and really know what they're supposed to do, you have that sense of accomplishment when you beat each one of these bosses. Well, this is my board game of the month. You're going to see at the bottom of the screen where you can find us. I am, again, Jeremy of King's Entertainment Reviews, and I'm glad to be part of this collaboration, and I'll catch you next month.
Hey everybody, Dan here, aka Chairman of the Board, and my game of the month for May goes to Caylus. Caylus is actually considered one of the forefathers of the worker placement genre. This game goes back 20 years or so ago to a time when Eurogames were a bit more clean, a bit simpler, and also a bit more vicious than they are nowadays. And this one certainly is a game that represents those times. So on the face of it, Caylus is quite similar to a lot more modern and more popular worker placement style games. However, there are a few things this game does differently to those modern games that tailor it a bit more towards my personal taste. Things such as the ultra tight economy in this game. It's very expensive to get anything done. This really cool passing mechanism where the earlier you pass, you kind of end up ramping up the fees of other people to take more worker placement actions, and the ownership of buildings, and even this really cutthroat mechanism where you can manipulate this provost token up or down this track, which can block people off taking worker placement actions entirely and waste their entire turn. So very nasty, but it works like clockwork. And, I think worker placement games are a very saturated genre of games. There's so many out there nowadays, and finding the best ones is difficult. And despite this one being one of the earliest ones, I still think this one is one of the best. I'll probably put this one in the top 5, maybe even my top 3 worker placement games of all time. It is that good, and I'm sure if you love worker placement games, you will enjoy Caelus, and you'll be doing yourself a disservice if you don't give that one a go. So there we go, my game of the month is Caelus. If you don't know who I am, my name is Dan. I run my own YouTube channel called Chairman of the Board, where I talk about kind of older games, dry, dusty Euros, as well as more kind of hidden gems and smaller card games, etc. So lots of different things I cover, and I'd love it if you could join me on my channel and check out my content. But for everyone else, I'll see you next time on Game of the Month. Bye now.
Hi, I'm Libby and this is Julian, and we're Boxed Meeples, and you can find us on Instagram, on Twitter and on YouTube.
We've had another busy month playing board games, but today we're going to discuss our favourites, and for me it has been Unfathomable this month. We meet regularly at a board game group, and a lot of people really love Battlestar Galactica. It's not really been a game that's been on our radar much because we tend to play games with just the two of us. But now we're meeting regularly with a group of people and we begin to know them quite well. I feel comfortable playing kind of more accusational games. I feel comfortable pointing at people and saying, "You, sir, are a traitor." So we have played Battlestar Galactica one week, and then someone said they have Unfathomable. Now, Unfathomable, which is not only hard to say, but it's quite an exciting game because Battlestar Galactica has not been available for quite some time. Partly because it's based on a license. So what they've done is kind of rethemed it. They based it on a turn of the century kind of Cthulhu era, and that's actually the theme that I prefer more.
Which I was really surprised by. I didn't play these two games, I was playing other ones at the gaming group. But when you said that you'd compared the two and didn't prefer the spacey theme, I was super surprised.
Well, I liked Battlestar Galactica, but the problem is I saw it a long time ago. I can't really remember all the nuances of it, and it was never really a favourite series. So for people coming to this game without any prior knowledge of Battlestar Galactica, what's better about Unfathomable? It's a more streamlined, condensed game, and it has a lot of the kind of mechanics from some of the Battlestar Galactica expansions already embedded in it. Obviously, getting hold of Battlestar Galactica now would be phenomenally expensive. You're buying it second-hand, whereas Unfathomable is readily available, albeit quite expensive. And we had such a good time playing it. Both times I was human, which is disappointing. You turn over those cards at the beginning and you're kind of willing it to be the traitor because that makes it the more of the exciting game. And all the times I was not only human, I was like superhuman. I was human all the way through. And yeah, I'm eager to play it again just so I can be a traitor next time. But Unfathomable, really, really great game.
Yeah, you definitely prefer the traitor mechanisms in games more than I do, I would say. I mean, I like them more than I used to. I used to be a bit anti-traitor mechanism, I would say, but I've sort of grown to like a few of them. But you're definitely
I'm comfortable playing that, particularly when you know people who are new to our group. You always feel a bit awkward pointing at them and accusing them, which is what I tended not to do actually in the recent game I played where they were the traitor and I wasn't, which kind of cast aspersions on me. But yeah, if you know a group of people, it's really great to get into.
So my favourite this month is The Great Wall by Awakened Realms. It's one that I've recently backed on the reprint on GameFound. I missed out last time and felt annoyed that I didn't get it. And then we played it with one of our friends a while ago who had the great version with all the miniatures and things like that. And absolutely fell in love with it. So I knew as soon as the reprint was announced that I was going to be on that, and I was sort of really disappointed in myself for not having backed it then. And then earlier this month we played again with another friend who had a copy, but he had the Meeple version, which was quite interesting to sort of compare the two and actually think that they did really well at making Meeples that still, like, the archers look great and the cavalry and things. For a company that sort of tend to focus on miniatures, it's good that they put the time and effort into the Meeples as well. So I didn't feel, I mean, I want the miniature version, don't get me wrong, but I didn't feel like the game was lacking as much as I wondered if it might do from playing that version. And I just really love the sort of two-stage part of it where you're sort of Euro style, picking up bits and things that you need in one section, and then at the sort of top half of it you're off out fighting and defending the wall, and that combination. And I really like the way you get certain powers for your different clans, which are different across each player, and you can get different advisors that might help you in different ways, and if you manage to sync those things up together you can really get some progress moving. So that's quite a nice challenge.
Hey, this is Mark with The Thoughtful Gamer. You can find all my stuff at thethoughtfulgamer.com, and the best game that I played this month is Reiner Knizia's Babylonia. I've been having a great time with this game, even though apparently everyone I play it with isn't as enthused about it as I am, but I love Reiner Knizia games. This is one of his more recent games, and I think it's a little bit undervalued. I don't think as many people know about this one as they should. It reminds me a lot of a couple of different games. I've heard it compared to Samurai. I've heard it compared to Through the Desert. I've only played Through the Desert once. I've never played Samurai. So I would compare it closer to, of Reiner Knizia games, I'd compare it to Stevenson's Rocket. But I would also compare it to Go, insofar as it is an area control tile placement game that's really, really actually about area control. You're placing these tiles on this board where there's land spaces, there's water spaces, and there's all these different ways to score on the board, but the tiles that score only activate once they are surrounded by player tiles. And so you're simultaneously trying to build up area that you control on the board, and also trying to activate these scoring tiles that score in different ways. And every time I play, I have to warn people and tell them at the beginning of the game, this game's really about the end state. It's about finishing the game with a wide, broad, connected space that you have control of so that you can get very high scores at the end. And it's really, really about that. So that's how it reminds me of Go, and also Stevenson's Rocket. In Stevenson's Rocket, you are also trying to establish a very, very strong network and have control of it over the end, where almost all of the points are given out. It's a fascinating game because it feels very, very old school in that there's not a lot, there's no like economic system. It's just about placing tiles down. It's not elaborate. It's actually quite simple. The visuals are very straightforward. I think they could have been spiced up a bit, not necessarily saying that they could be more fancy, but that they literally should be brighter. The board's a bit dim. The tiles are a bit plain. I think some more contrasting colors would have helped there. I wouldn't recommend playing this one in a dimly lit room, for instance. But the gameplay is fascinating because you have the tension between your end point, your end state of the game being very, very important, but along the ways, all of these little small ways in which you can gather points immediately, these small triggers that run counter to the larger strategy of controlling the board. And that's where Babylonia really, really shines, and that's why I think it's absolutely fascinating. You may not get it your first play, but I would recommend sticking with it because it captures that kind of I don't know what to call it. It captures something that you see in abstract games like Go, that kind of deep level of strategy and understanding that what you do at the very beginning of the game is exceptionally important. It's not just a game where you can poke around and figure out what's going on. To play well, you have to play well from the very beginning. So the more you play it, the better it gets. Babylonia is fascinating. I absolutely love it. And I love lots of Reiner Knizia games. This is one of my favorites for sure. Thanks for watching. Again, I am Mark with The Thoughtful Gamer. You can see everything I do at thethoughtfulgamer.com. I've got written reviews, including of Babylonia, all kinds of other stuff I write about, I podcast about, I do video about. Again, thethoughtfulgamer.com. Thanks.
And, well, that about wraps us up for another month. I hope you have enjoyed. I hope you found some games and heard about some games that maybe you hadn't before, or maybe you'd heard the name, but you didn't know much about them. Well, at least one of the creators has chosen it as their best game, so it might be worth you checking out too. And check out all of the creators that have been involved in today's show. Their information will be in the description box downstairs. Basically, next to their timestamp, it will have a link, and it will either go to their YouTube or their social media page, whatever they've preferred, basically. And until next time, have a great month gaming.